What's up, everybody? My name's Indy, and the gentleman next to me, that's Jay Powell from Powell Group Consulting. And it's warm where I live, but I'm sure it's cold where he lives. And welcome to another indie game business. Is it cold where you live right now?
I mean, it depends on who you're talking to. It's in the 40s.
Oh, yeah. It's like 70 something and muggy here already. We got 9 inches of snow, and then now it's like 70 something degrees, and it's muggy, and I don't even want to go outside ever again. Anyways, welcome to Indie Game Business. We got Jim Hudson as our guest today, and he's been in the gaming industry quite a long time. 30 years in the game industry. Also, make sure you guys unmute in Discord so that everybody can hear you over there too.
Luckily, we have Ash to remind us of that, because otherwise, it never
happens. What are you having me do?
Unmute in Discord there, in that Discord. There you go.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, make sure and mute Jay as well.
Yeah,
I did. We did that while you were out.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. This is as you shared, I've been in the industry for going on 30 years, and this is probably my first interview on camera that I'm talking about myself. So.
Well, that's what makes it easy. I mean, I'm going to make it real easy, because for folks like you and I who've been doing this, 25, 30 years, this is the part of the show that can take up the most amount of time. Tell us how you originally got into the industry, and then walk us through your career up to today.
Yes. I consider myself a journeyman producer. I think I've run the gamut of producer roles. I'm going to be known as your anecdotal guest, because that's pretty much all I have. Don't have a whole lot in the way of advice, other than I don't think I can get in the industry today if I tried to, but my years of experience and getting in early has kept me going. I actually I'm in LA, born and raised in LA, and I was trying to make it in the more traditional industry channels, whether it be music, theater, or film. I was in a band here doing the LA circuit to minimal success. A lot of grunge was happening at the time with long hair, and my hair was falling out. So that was counterproductive to the goal of being a rock star. I started a theater company in downtown LA. And hold on a second, I'm getting a call. A theater company in downtown LA, and I was also working In Living Color on Fox Television. I don't know if you remember that. Yeah, I was a production assistant.
I love that show.
Yeah, and Jim Carrey, who was on the show, I only met once, and he was a super nice guy, and we were at a cast party that I was invited to, and I saw him bowling, and I went and drank 2 stiff drinks and went up and asked him, how do you make it as an actor in Hollywood? And he actually sat down and spent some time with me, which I will never forget and truly appreciate. But I had written a musical, and a buddy of mine, whose name's Greg Borrud, he was producing it. And while we were working on rewrites, he got a phone call, and it was Activision, and he had just gotten a job at Activision. And I knew at that point the musical was in a precarious state, but he said, hey, do you want to come test games for a living? I was waiting tables at the time, and I said, sure, I'll test games as opposed to sling burritos. That sounds like a lot better experience. And so I went in and started at Activision QA. First game I tested was a game called Mech Warrior 2. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it was I was doing it just solely as a day job, still trying to make it in the more traditional entertainment arenas. But as time went on, I just saw the opportunity in games. I started to appreciate games more, playing them more, understanding the industry. I chose to go into production. Quick story about my QA time. There was a couple of us, a lot of the testers really loved games and wanted to get in the game industry. There was a couple of us, it was just more of a day job. And one of the fellow day jobbers who was just better than waiting tables. He was a screenwriter, and I was writing a screenplay, and we were kind of helping each other out, supporting each other. And I got pretty disillusioned with the whole film industry, despite having screenplays that weren't getting read. And he was encouraging me to go, no, 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 keep sticking with it. We'll get our break. And I didn't believe it, so I decided to take a job in Activision production on a position on a game called Battlezone 2, and he would go on to write the movie Elf. So his path went a little more successfully than mine. Battlezone 2, I don't know if it sold more than a couple thousand units. Few people have seen Elf, so
Occasionally,
yeah,
like once a year. So yes.
once a year I get reminded of my choice to choose video games. But in all honesty, the video game industry has been very good to me. It's given me purpose and a paycheck, something I wasn't seeing in the other ways. And so I went into production at Activision, worked on Battlezone 2 and Castle Wolfenstein. Pretty much was doing RTSs and first-person shooters. They had me doing localizations and other just associate producer type work. I was there for 7 years and felt it was time for a change. I think I'd hit my ceiling as the guy who's only doing this until he becomes a rock star, movie star. And so I got an opportunity with my first person shooter experience to join a startup up in Santa Cruz, California. They had secured the license. They had secured a job, a project with Electronic Arts, EA, for the Medal of Honor franchise. And with my first person shooter experience, I took the leap to go on more of the development side at a startup in Santa Cruz, which is an awesome city. I don't know if you've ever been there. And work and help them with my experience in first person production and first person shooters. We were able to get Medal of Honor Breakthrough out. It was the second expansion pack for Medal of Honor Allied Assault. And no one really can't believe that it would we would get it done, because it was a very brand new startup with a bunch of new members to the gaming industry. I was probably one of the more senior, and without a doubt, I was the most senior in terms of experience. And we successfully got it out, so we were able to work on Medal of Honor Pacific Assault. And that was really a fun time for me. It was new. I had lived in LA all my life, and this was the first time I moved out of LA permanently, and just really loved it. But that only lasted 2 years. Like most startups, they don't last long unless they have a just huge hit or get acquired. That was neither. So then I got the opportunity to move to Austin, Texas. Did I answer the question? Do you want me to go through all this?
Oh, no, this is absolutely fascinating and what I want people to hear, because we never have the same story. We've been doing this for like 6 years, and this is always the first question. And so, yeah, absolutely. Keep going.
Okay.
You're on a roll. Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. So I moved to Austin. A small publisher in Austin called Aspire Media, they had struck up a relationship with Alex Seropian. He founded Bungie. He was one of the founders of Bungie, and they put out Halo. Or they put out something before, I'm forgetting what it's called. And then we're working on Halo, and Microsoft bought Bungie, and he finished Halo. And then he started a new developer in Chicago. Oh, I'm forgetting the name of it. I apologize. I forget the name.
Okay. All good.
But this publisher, Aspire, down in Austin, formed a partnership to publish his first non-Bungie game. Wide Load Studios is what they were called. Thanks for remembering. And so they brought me in to oversee that. They saw that I had worked on Medal of Honor Breakthrough, and they were a publisher who would take games and port them to the Mac. And my game was on their webpage, so that kind of opened the door. for me to help them with their new venture of publishing new content. And this was a game called Stubbs the Zombie, Rebel Without a Pulse. And what was unique about that was its soundtrack had artists that I was big fans of. Austin is known for their music, being the music capital. I don't know if I agreed with that, but they do have a very vibrant music community. And so it had like Flaming Lips is one of my favorite bands, and they did a song for that game. And so I was at Aspire. I helped them get Stubbs the Zombie out. Proud of that. Small publisher, didn't get a ton of marketing, but we did the best we could, and something that I like to share. But then I got the opportunity to join a big multinational technical conglomerate known as Microsoft. They had just acquired a technology called Massive Incorporated that would tag textures in games to dynamically project advertisements. So when you played the game, advertisements would change and they would be relevant and they would generate revenue. So it was an additional revenue stream for both Microsoft and the game maker. And they brought me on to try to take that technology, that startup, and make it more in line with the game development process. So it was a more seamless integration and not disrupting the teams too much or delaying dates too long. And I was with them for 4 years. And I really enjoyed my time at Microsoft. They were a great employer. To be a member of a company with that much clout yields a lot of perks and a lot of fringe benefits, like exceptional health care. And I had
like health insurance.
Yeah, I had 2 children. That my first son, he had some challenges at birth that would have cost a ton of money that Microsoft paid for. So technically my son was brought to us by Microsoft. And they tried very hard to get this business model of dynamic in-game advertising in games. We tried for 4 years. I just think it was a little ahead of its time. Everything being online wasn't quite there yet. I mean, I'm talking 2008.
Yeah.
And but they threw a lot of money at it, made a lot of promises. We got as far as we could, but then the Great Recession hit. And for the first time in Microsoft's illustrious existence, they had to start shutting down businesses that weren't generating or had the potential to generate tons of revenue. And that business was shuttered. And so I was let go at that point. And then I kind of wanted to figure out what to do next. And EA came a calling, and they were doing an RTS, which I had experience in. Plus, I knew the director. Command and Conquer 2 Generals was being made. And that was 2 years. That was tough 2 years. We worked hard on it. Most of the development team was in LA. I was in Austin still, overseeing the engineers. I was a dev director. And we worked really hard. We had the game done. We were in closed beta, practicing our monetization strategies or testing them out, making sure we could generate revenue. And unfortunately, some leadership changes happened at EA, and the new leadership came in and decided that they weren't going to pursue that franchise any longer. And so it was canceled. And that was a heartbreaking life lesson for me. Another one. And they would go on to make more Command and Conquers, but they took a pause at that time. And so I decided at that point that I wanted to try something different. So I moved to Las Vegas to make slot machines. And that was a fun 2 years living in Vegas, making software for One Armed Bandits. They were using what was called the Ascent engine, which is based off the Unity engine. So slot machines are more and more just like video games, but instead of high scores, you get cash.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be
Instead of
honest,
level design, you have
for
math.
dice, I had no idea they ran them off of Unity.
Yeah. IGT was the company I worked for.
Yeah.
And they took Unity was the base engine and they modified it and they call it Ascent. I don't know if they still do that. This was back in 2012, 2013. And so that was fine. But then the buddy who got me into the industry back in the Make It Right musical days, who got me into Activision, he had started a company called Seismic Games. And they had secured a project where they were going to bring the Blade Runner franchise to Google's mobile VR platform called Daydream. And he needed a producer. And it was an opportunity I just could not pass up. Working at that time, tip of the spear technology, cutting edge VR, mobile VR. And so I moved back to LA and joined Seismic Games, and working hand in hand with Google and Alcon Entertainment, who owned the Blade Runner franchise, we got out Blade Runner Revelations for the Google mobile VR Daydream platform. It was out for a few months, getting good reviews, and then Google decided that they no longer wanted to support or pursue VR technology. So they shut down the Daydream platform. And any questions so far? I'm doing a lot of talking.
No. Well, I can absolutely pepper you with questions along the way. And one, and that's the reason I chuck, it's like Google continues to shoot themselves in the foot because that's what they're known for now. It's like, I think that's a big part of why that, whatever the set top thing was didn't work out, is because all of us in the industry were like, why are we going to invest a ton of money in this? You're just going to close it.
Right.
And sure enough, they did. All right. So up to this point, you've done work on the startup side. You've also done work for the big companies, the Microsofts, the EAs, the Activisions. Which did you prefer?
Oh man, that question. They each have their pluses and challenges. Being at a large company, you know what that's like, right? You get to go on business dinners and expense it. You get your own hotel room when you travel, health insurance, free membership to fitnesses. But you're just a cog in the machine. You're a small fish in a very large pond. And Microsoft was very siloed, and you only could go in your swim lane. If you went out of your swim lane, you got smacked around and forced back in. So being creative and trying to think outside the boundaries is tough at a large company, in my experience. Other people may have different experiences, but in my experience, to be loose and free and shoot from the hip creatively, you didn't really get that opportunity. Where at a startup, when you're a large fish in a small pond, your input, you see it once it goes out, you see its impact, and you can change the directions of a product or a company just by participating and giving, feedback and suggestions and directives. And that's nice. That's stressful, but both are stressful. So both have their pluses. If I had to pick one at this juncture in my career, I think I'd want to stay small. I mean, I have a lot to share, as your audience is hearing. So, why not help other younger producers learn from my mistakes and successes?
I think it's a cycle that I see with a lot of folks our age who've been doing this a very long time. I'm an anomaly. I've never worked at a big company. I just stubborn and didn't think I would fit in. And I interviewed and actually had one of a woman at Amazon tell me that too. So the cycle of, you want a steady paycheck, you want that safe job at the big company, and then at a certain point you get fed up. As someone on YouTube said, a lot of folks don't realize the daily struggle behind the scenes with the office politics and business decisions and family life balance and all this sort of stuff. And then you get fed up with it and you go, I want to go and do a startup, and you work at the small company where it's much more, it's riskier on the financial side, but it's much more rewarding on the input side. And then it's just things keep happening, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I would really like a regular paycheck again. And so you go to AAA or you go to the big companies, and then you cycle back. I mean, when you look and when you're talking to the next generation of producers, what are some of the key things that you try to impart immediately?
Remember I told you I'm the anecdotal producer guest? I don't have any feedback. I would tell, like I said, I was at the right place at the right time. Back in the mid 90s, they were looking for people just to join, to help out, whether it be testing or if you were working in the traditional entertainment industry. They saw that being transferable. Today, I think you really have to have a passion. I think you need to prepare to sacrifice. I think you need to understand the industry on every angle, not just what makes a game fun, but what makes a game sell, what's selling, what's trending, what's the latest technology. Obviously, AI is moving the needle in every industry, but especially games. So really just really be more laser, don't be a shotgun and blast what you want to do. Really narrow in what you want to do, and then just be an expert at that. So they have to hire you.
And it's also harder to have that stability at the bigger companies now than it used to be too. So you have to be focused, and you have to know what you know. But you also, like you said, you have to understand every part of the industry now, because something else is going to pop up. Because you came up to the industry the same way we used to hire producers when we transferred, the company I was at originally into a publishing company. And like we went to the QA people. It's like, okay, who writes the good documentation? Who knows what they're talking about? And congratulations, you're a producer. There's no training in it. It was just like, that's what it is. I mean, are you seeing? Y'all got more game schools out in LA than we have over here on this side of the coast, but are you seeing more students come out like early level with actual production training from school, or is it still very much the whole, yes, you can communicate and you're somewhat organized, and yes, congratulations, you're the producer now?
No, they're putting out products. They're Full Sail and other companies, they'll put out products and release them on Steam, my understanding. And taking college projects that start, that we at Niantic, we hired a group of students that did a game jam for us. Niantic sponsored a game jam, and their product came in like second or third, but it was in line with something we were trying to do. So we just acquired that group of students once they graduated. So that was unheard of when I started. There were no degrees in game development, and so it's come a long way. And the answer to your question is yes. I think you see products on Steam that are from schools, as well as the story I just shared about acquiring a group of students who decide to get into the market.
We just did a session in Umea last week where we sat down and did pitch deck reviews for a group of students, and one of the students pitched a game, and they got through it, and then they were aiming in one direction, and those of us that were on the panel were like, whoa, your like side part of this is like the most unique part of the game that we've seen. And so it is. Yeah, I agree. We see more of them. I still get a little frustrated with the ads that pop up that's like, hey, come here and spend 2 years and you'll be a game designer. And we're like, yeah, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
But
I went to film school. I mean, it's the same thing, right? I went to film school. I learned filmmaking. What Hollywood's about networking, contacts, and getting your break. Being the greatest cinematographer helps, but it doesn't guarantee anything. You want to be a great cinematographer or director because that's what you love. And then if it's somehow you get your break, fantastic.
So what has been, and I get this question a lot, so I'm gonna deflect it and ask you, what has kept you in this industry for 30 years?
The cynical answer will be it's all I know what to do. There's nothing else that anybody would hire me for. Again, I am forever indebted to this industry. It hasn't been an easy road, as I've been sharing. A lot of changes. That doesn't help with wanting stability unless you are successful. My friend Greg, he started a company called Pandemic, and they were very successful. They got bought by EA. But I have not had such fortune. But I've had purpose and I've gotten paid, something that I didn't see happening in the more traditional entertainment industry. I saw myself waiting tables for a very long time. It's given me a purpose. It's given me an identity. I thought it would wow my son's friends more that his dad makes video games. They don't seem to care.
Don't.
My son doesn't play the last game I put out. It's like, hey man, help me out. No one's playing it. Could you please play it? So yeah, I mean, it's what I do. It's not even, I look at how do I apply my skill set in other areas? Some apply, some don't, but after almost 30 years, I make video games. That's what I do.
I usually tell people it's spite at this point. That's the only reason I'm still here.
There's a little bit of that.
There is that aspect of, okay, what else are we going to get hired to do? But, spite is always a thing that keeps me going. And, Little Rock on YouTube brings up a good point. The biggest thing they tell the younger workers in their field and to my kids is to learn something new every day and never think for a minute that you know it all. And
amen. Yeah.
We are fortunate in the fact that we have a very quickly evolving industry. There is always something new, and so that sort of thing, you never get stale, basically. So someone had asked earlier, where are you, because this is always a very hot topic in the industry, where are you seeing AI being used now in development, and where do you see it being used down the road?
For me, on the project I just got done working on, Stormgate, we used it for localizations. The advancements that AI brings to localizing your game is order of magnitude. I started with localizations where I would have to, from the Quake engine, extract pack files, unload them, and then manually swap strings. It was torture.
Yes.
Those days are over. AI is really advancing the ability to localize your title in different languages with significantly less effort. I'm learning now how it can help me in my project management needs. Trying to learn more about that. Right now, AI still has a stigma of it being the enemy. So having it create things like art is still a no-no, I guess. But I think we have to embrace it because it is here to stay and going to change all our lives, better or worse, unknown.
And when you're talking about the localization side of it, you're talking about the text localization, not the voice, because that's a whole
the voice. No.
But that's a whole other bag of worms.
Just a matter of time, though. I would say pretty soon they'll be able to change.
Well,
sound like me.
It'll sound like that. those videos on TikTok that are just annoying as shit because it's like the same generic robot voice the entire time.
But it's just a matter of time, right? I mean, look at it. Look at how video games used to look 20 years ago.
Well, I mean, yeah, they had that. Scarlett Johansson sued somebody, I forgot who it was, a year or so ago because they basically used AI to tweak her voice when she didn't take a part in the movie. I mean, that luckily she's got Scarlett Johansson money to go after people, but yeah, it is. It's fucking terrifying, to be blunt. Here's one that I think we could probably spend the next 30 minutes talking about from James Coop. How do you deal with publishers and management needing a fixed timeline versus the unpredictable nature of making a creative product?
How do we say that? Let me read that. How do you deal with publishers, needing a fixed timeline versus unpredictable nature? Yeah, how do you? That's my question. Look, I mean, we all know the tripod, right? What do you compromise? Money, resources, time, or quality? And if you don't decide early on, quality will always be the one that suffers. And you don't want that. You want to put out the best product possible. So there is no silver bullet to that question. Sometimes lead management publishers have a legitimate reason why a game has to be done at X time. So then you say, all right, well, let's cut off this, this, and this. No, we promised that, and that. And it's just an ongoing struggle that, in my experience, has to be at the forefront, continuing to update management, stakeholders, publishers. This is where we're at. My hunch is, after so many years of experience, we're tingling that we're not going to do this. What we need to either pare down or add more resources, and we all know just throwing more resources at something isn't the answer, but it's better than no answer. But if we do nothing, then quality will be adversely affected.
Back to the age-old rule of be very careful about buying games that release in the second half of the last month of a quarter.
Yeah. I hope that answers your question. That's the age-old question. That's why I get hired, is to juggle that very question.
So what's the biggest difference between production in a big team versus a small team studio? What are the things to be aware of going from one to the other?
Well, again, small team, you have more insight into everything that's going on, and can better align pipelines and processes to getting what needs to get done. Bigger teams, there were parts of a game I was working on that I didn't know who was doing what, and you just had faith that it would get done. And when it didn't, it was problematic and caused a lot of stress and work. Yeah, I mean, working with smaller teams, you have more hands-on. Bigger teams, you have faith of your counterparts, other producers, other project managers, other directors. So I've never been a executive producer of somebody with a project of, I'd say, more than 120. So games like Call of Duty, I'm sure this got executive producers all over the place, just navigating.
That's a good question. How many executive producers were in the last Call of Duty? I'm kind of curious about that too now. I mean, throughout your career, what is, whether it's a small studio or a big studio, what is the part of the whole process that you've appreciated the most?
In hindsight, going through the process of trying to develop software that not only works, but works and entertains on time, that experience, the fulfillment of being successful at that, is worth all the stress and hell that you go through getting there. And the lingering effects are relationships with the people you went through this trench warfare with that last for a very long time. Most of my closest friends are people who I worked on projects with that it's like war. I mean, they have to have your back, you have to have theirs, and getting something done, working with extremely intelligent people, way more intelligent than I am, and just pleading with engineers who could change the world. Please, we got to get this milestone out. It causes a lot of stress and friction, but at the end of the day, when the dust settles, you're family, and that I've really appreciated more than anything. Just the people you meet, because we only ride this roller coaster of life once, and the people you meet along the way has always been to me the most valuable. Now I haven't worked on a game that was a super hit, and therefore I can sit on a beach and just relax. But my life has been enriched by the people that I've worked with along the way. So what's better? I don't have an answer to that.
So here's a question based on the beach analogy. And this is something that, I struggle with as well. If you did get that big hit where you had the opportunity that you could just sit on the beach and relax for the rest of your life, would you do it?
At this juncture, yes. 20 years ago, maybe not. I was still trying something to prove. You guys can connect the dots, being in this 30 years, and I didn't start when I was 4. So you guys I'm a veteran. And so, yes, I would very much like to knock it out of the park and then say, hey,
see ya.
That doesn't mean I'm going to retire. I don't think I have that in me to just sit on a porch with a glass of lemonade and a rocking chair.
You could be a consultant.
Yeah, I would be something more. Hopefully, give back. I'd like. I know everybody says that. I'd like to practice what I preach and actually do give back in one form or another. Doing something I think would be rewarding by helping others. Again,
you're doing that right now.
Say that.
Wow,
thank you.
It's super easy. So,
yeah.
Question from Victor on LinkedIn. What advice would you give to new studios who are trying to get more eyes on their product or studio?
Make that one of your pillars. Make that one of the startup, not just to make a great game, but actually do whatever. I'm not in marketing, but do whatever marketing tricks need to take place that you're not just the finished product, but the journey along the way. We've tried that. We've tried that at Frost Giant Studios to some success. That's part of your pillars. If that's what you want to do, make that as important as the game design doc. What is the go-to-market strategy? What is the PR strategy? How are we how are we staying current as we develop our product? Would be my non-marketing suggestion.
And network. At the end of the day, in this industry, it seems to always come down to networking and who you know. This is a good one. So I work with graduate students from game development and design. What would be some advice and resources I could give them when they're seeking their first employment opportunity as a new graduate? I mean, mine's going to be run, but I mean, that's just me.
Yeah, what do they want to be? Do they want to be a designer? Are they an engineer, an artist?
Well, I mean, let's just look at it from the production standpoint. Let's assume they're producers.
I'll repeat it. Know the industry inside and out. Know what. Don't be working on a genre because you love it if it's not going to sell, unless you don't need that livelihood. Know what you need to be working on. When I started, I'd go into Activision and say, hey, you're working on, Star Trek Elite Force this time around. They would just hint to me, those days are over. To break in, really, I would figure out exactly what you want to do and then become an expert in that area. I would try to be as technical as possible. start making stuff with Unity and Unreal. There's free versions of this stuff. Start doing things on your own. Really become a complete package. A little bit how to program. You can do some art. You can do some design. You have a fun idea in mind, and that would just be as well-rounded as you can. Stay lean and mean. Don't go out and buy a house and then
Because you're going to have
for
to
that
move
mortgage.
anyway. I mean, that's
Yeah. Stay focused, stay lean, learn how to save on your money as you just really build yourself up and train. It's great to have the education, but it's actually getting product to market. That's all that matters. And it's selling.
And that ties into one of the comments from Discord. How do you feel about individuals making their own games as portfolio pieces? Do it.
Fantastic.
And do it often.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you're going to get in the door these days.
It really is. And a lot of folks don't realize whether what you shipped as a project is good or not is less important than the fact that you actually shipped it and you got it out the door. And I mean, hell, if somebody buys it, you're even up 2 or 3 more rungs on that ladder. But
yeah, that was so painful. That's why Command and Conquer Generals 2 cancellation was so painful. I worked on it for over 2 years. What do I have to show for it? What'd you do, Jim? Go sit on the beach? No, I worked my keister off getting this thing out the door, and it just didn't happen. Forces outside of our control. And that happens. And getting it to market is in and of itself is a feat that you should be very proud of, despite scope, despite quality. I mean, I wouldn't put out junk too often, but learning the process of getting a product to market is a huge accomplishment. People don't realize.
I like the too often asterisk on the end of that. Don't put out junk too often. I mean, you can absolutely, you can put out junk. Just don't do it too often. I mean, a couple of years ago, Michael Brown from Vicarious had a talk at one of our conferences on the marketing side about how the headline of it was, you can do everything right and still fail. And I was like, wow, that is accurate, but oh my God, discouraging. But I mean, yeah, it is. Here's one for your.
I wanted to share a Churchill saying that I read every morning. Success is walking from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. So I think that speaks volumes because we all have our shortcomings.
But it also, and I had never heard that Churchill quote. I like that. But it also runs dangerously close to what the definition of insanity is: doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's like 2 sides of the same coin there.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was at a cocktail. Someone told me it was Churchill. I didn't really check. It may not be. I attribute it to him.
It sounds very Churchill.
And I'm sure it was at a cocktail party. I don't think he was saying do the same mistake over and over again. But I hear you. But you want to learn.
Yep. As long as you learn something from it and you still have a roof over your head, it wasn't a complete failure. And
right.
That's, you just have to, if you love this industry and this is what you want to do, you just have to pick your head up and roll again. God knows we've all failed somewhere along the way. I have.
And you're gonna make the same mistake a couple times. It's part of the process.
And then you're going to watch other people make the same mistake, even though you told them what to do. And
exactly. You'll never get that out in time.
Yes.
We will because we're doing this and this. No.
That's not going to work. Hey, all right, here's a good one for your anecdotes. Could you share a challenge that you face constantly?
Well, it's the one that you asked about is we have to have this minimum of viable product and we need it here. And I look at it and I go, at the sniff test, it doesn't even pass the sniff test. Now I'll put together a Gantt chart for you. I'll build a backlog, but and we'll get the velocity, but I'm telling you right now, Scrum Agile works is you are always potentially shipping a a potentially shippable finished product. Doesn't mean it's going to have any quality. It's shippable, but it isn't quality. And you can't, you can try to predict the future with your Gantt charts, but at the end of the day, in my experience, I can look at what the plan is and say, this just isn't going to happen. And it happens every time I come on board. And so then it's the struggle of, all right, we either cut, add more resources, or affect quality. And you cannot affect quality. That's a death nail. So that's every time.
It never changes.
It never changes.
I see it too, even though I got out of the world of production because I didn't like it, and I was not built for it. I didn't even have the temperament for it. So it's having folks like you and Heather around are the ones that make my life much easier. All right,
and you go into the boardroom with the leaders and share and plead with them, and then they go, sorry, we're going to be insolvent if you don't. But then you got to go out on the floor and go walk and do a one-on-one with one of your developers because they see it and they don't believe it. And you got to sell what isn't real, but you got to keep trying. And so you got to fight with the stakeholders, but empower the team to keep going forward.
And then stand in the corner and yell in between those meetings. So yes.
Or hopefully don't get a drinking problem.
There's totally not a little fridge full of beer beside my desk. I have no idea. Never happens. What would you recommend to teams just beginning a studio to set themselves up for success as a unit?
Are they bootstrapping it? Are they funded? What?
Let's just assume they're bootstrapping it.
Well, okay. Well, then don't have any producers. Start with.
Wait, really?
Who's good? You guys? The art one artist, the one engineer, the one designer. They're going to have to be the project managers until they get it to the point that they can afford someone who's not a direct contributor to the product. It's scary, and that's why I keep calling in to a situation that should have had a producer 6 months ago. But if you're bootstrapping it, you got to wear multiple hats.
So have somebody with production experience, but then most of the time you're not really going to have access to that either.
How are you going to pay a producer? Or bootstrap?
No, that's a good point. It's just something I always tell teams: figure out a way to pay a producer.
I agree with you, but I think early on you want to keep just to the who's contributing to the product, and then the first thing you hire is a producer.
That's interesting.
Probably against the grain. I'll probably get if anybody I know is watching this, they'll go, "What are you, nuts?"
But I mean, if you only have X amount of money, and the reality is right now it's very hard to raise money, as a developer, even as a publisher. And so as long as there's somebody who has a base level understanding of project management, I can see you doing it. But you did surprise me there, being from a production.
Well, maybe producer, maybe producer isn't getting a paycheck, but once it is, I just find me. How do you pay somebody who's not adding to the product?
I would argue that
I would love to learn
by having the product actually get to a state where you can get funding. But you're right; they're not programming; they're not doing the art.
I changed my mind. Hire a producer first.
No, you can't. I'm not trying to agree with you, Jim.
I don't know. I mean, it's a tough question.
So, if you had to do it all over again, would you have worked on Elf, or would you have, stayed in the industry? The choices I made were the right ones. If I had to do it over again, I wish I would have cherished each
experience in the moment. In the moment, so stressful, so many unknowns, so much going on. It's hard. And looking back, I wish I would have it's hard. It's going to be hard. It's work, but really enjoy it, knowing that, hey man, I am doing something, and I'm going to look back and look fondly of it. Might as well not wait to look back, to look fondly on it. Look fondly on it now. It's hard, but it's part of life. And so I wish I would have not it just be such a painstaking experience, but also relish the time that I was doing it with the team. The team that I joined after Activision we were so close, so tight, because we had to be. We were do or dying off this Medal of Honor expansion pack we were developing. That I didn't really enjoy it. I was just too stressed out. I mean, that's always going to be there, but see if you can find a way to enjoy it. You're not going to be that person again in 24 hours.
All right, here's now we're going to start playing fantasy football indie game studio side. If you're building an indie game and you can only hire 5 people, what disciplines are you going to bring on?
5 engineers who can also do art and design.
And production and biz dev.
Right. And also know how to use Jira and can write specs. You got to have a great, that's a good question. You got to have a great idea. You got to have a great concept for a game, however you get that. And then if you're not getting funding, find people who believe in the vision and figure out how you guys can do it. Keep it small, keep it lean. Don't go get a big office. Don't offer free lunches. Just
don't turn a church in Dallas into your headquarters and spend a shit ton of money building it out. Just, random things.
Right. Don't do that. Work in a basement. Stay hungry, knowing that it's going to pay off in the future. I answer that question. It's a designer with a vision, with a game that everybody is bought into. Yes, this is fun. Really kick the tires on it, because you want it to be something that will stand out, because that's tough to do because you don't have a marketing team. And make the best game you possibly. Got to have an engineer. Got to have great art. So 2 engineers, 2 artists, and a designer.
Oh my God. Somebody literally just posted that at the same time you said it.
Oh, really? There you go. Is that the Chris Archer I know? Is there more than one Chris Archer in our industry? I know a Chris Archer. I don't know if it's the same one.
That is absolutely uncanny. So for the last question, and then we'll get to the what do you want to plug category. But for younger devs out there who need production education but don't have the degree, don't have a way of going it, where should they go to learn how to be a good producer?
If you can get a testing gig, I don't know if that still happens. I started in QA like a lot of my fellow producers did. Internships, I know there's incentives to do paid internships. Volunteer to answer phones if there's an office, and just through osmosis learn stuff. Learn on your own. There's so much information that you can just learn on your own. Try to get some fellow individuals breaking into the industry, work together. Just open up, set out a desk and say, all right, we're a game company. Even though that's all you are, 3 people who want to get into it. See what you can do your own. Learn Unreal, learn Unity. Be as complete as you can. I don't know if I'm answering the question.
Honestly, it's as good a question as you can get, because a lot of the stuff that you still have to learn on the fly. The only thing I would add to it is selfishly, yes, we have production talks and stuff on the Indie Game Business YouTube, but then, Heather Chandler has a book like that freaking thick about, she literally wrote the book on production. That's always where we tell people to start too. So Jim, this has been absolutely fantastic. I hope I wasn't too hard on you. What do you want?
You weren't hard enough. I was hoping for some banter.
Oh, well, no, because there's never a right or wrong in answer in this industry anyway. But what do you want to plug? What are you working on? What do you want to tell everybody about?
The last thing I was working on was Stormgate. Play Stormgate.com. It's a real-time strategy. I'm really proud of it. I'm not working there anymore. Moving on, but it's a fun game. We took our knocks. We got some critical feedback, but we're marching to a 1.0 that hopefully will address most of the concerns. We brought the community in early, and some of them were a little bit disappointed, but we're not giving up. So check it out. PlayStormgate.com.
To be fair, Civ 7 launched the other day, and apparently people were very disappointed about that too. So it matters not. I'm going to invest thousands of hours of my life in it regardless. So, but thank you so much, man. This is awesome. Yeah. It's fantastic. You're always welcome to come back and share what you know and help give back to the community.
I appreciate you letting me ramble for as long as you did. I hope no one unfollowed this channel.
Oh no, you would have to have followers for them to unfollow. So
yeah. Yep. And there are some tough questions in there for good banner. If you want to pull up some of them last questions that were asked there, Jay.
I've got a sick wife to take care of at a Sunday.
Okay.
School.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jim, for being on Indie Game Business. If you're not on our Discord, everybody that's watching, it's discord.gg/indiegamebusiness. Also, our network conference is coming up here shortly. 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. You got to join that. You definitely got to sign up for that. And you definitely just look at the schedule. indiegamebusiness.com. Also, check out our merch. See, there's a link right there, indiegamebusiness.com. There's a link tree. You can get Indie Game Business merch. I'll be at GDC wearing my Indie Game Business hoodie if it's not too hot for me.
Dan and I are going to meet in person, face to face, for the first time in 7 years.
That's right.
That is going to be crazy. That'll
be cool.
I want to see that.
Are you going to GDC?
Maybe, if that's happening.
We'll be there.
Yeah,
we'll absolutely be there. I've never met Dan in person. We've been doing this since 2018.
Yeah. Wow. It's going to be awesome.
All right, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Make sure and subscribe, all that good stuff.
Thank you both so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.